Why do we throw a party when someone falls in love with another individual, but we call it narcissistic if someone says they love themselves? What if loving yourself loudly has nothing to do with feeling good about yourself and everything to do with showing up for yourself when things get hard? Hey, it's your girl, Dr. Nina. Welcome to this podcast, Love Yourself Loudly. This has been such a labor of love. It's been on my heart for a couple of years now, and I finally feel so excited for this podcast to come into fruition. So I'm just feeling the vibe. So if you're seeing me on camera or video, you see that I just did a little jig. I am thrilled to bring this into the world, whether one person listens to it or many people. I really hope to get the message across about how we can be more loud, more boisterous about our self-worth and how we feel about ourselves, and not waiting until 10 years down the line when we did this thing or we get a little better, we get that partner to truly show up for ourselves and love ourselves. But how can we do that now while we're in process and finding ourselves along the journey? So I would love to do just a brief introduction to who I am. Before I go into who I am professionally now, I wanted to kind of bring us all the way back, do a little throwback to my history. I was a very loud little girl, and hence the name Love Yourself Loudly. And growing up, I think it had to do with a couple of things. I think it's just genuinely my personality. I'm very celebratory. I have a lot of energy, and I grew up the middle child. So I feel like, when you're a middle child, if you're a middle child out there, you know what this feels like. But you kind of have to be loud in order to get the attention that you might need growing up. Not consciously, it's subconscious that you're not intentionally doing that, but underneath all of that, you're looking to get that love that you want to receive from your parents or your caregivers. And so given that story, I was a good student growing up, but I think the thing that sort of maybe irritated my teachers a little bit, my teachers all liked me, but I think the thing that irritated them the most was that I was keeping up with the schoolwork. I was making sure that I was polite and respectful to everyone. But I was the chatty Cathy in the corner whispering to a friend that was I could not whisper. So it was very loudly whispering. And I was also the kind of kid that wanted to tell a joke or make things funny or entertaining. Once I understood the concepts or whatever I was learning, I wanted to have fun. And, in school, the way it's structured and the boundaries around it, it's kind of hard to bring light. I think some teachers did it really well, but in other aspects, people were very serious about what they were teaching, which is understandable. But I didn't like that structure. So I was going to be the one to crack a joke in the middle of class and make everybody laugh. And so I was given feedback from time to time of, you can bring the volume down, or oh, I see you chatting in the corner to that boy or whatever. And I'm just so, I guess, heartened by the fact that I didn't let that feedback at any point shrink me or make me feel small. I'm still a loud person, and I've continued to be, while also holding the balance of being respectful to other people and making sure other people have enough space to share their perspectives too. And so that's why the concept of the show came to the point, or came to a head, because at some point our voice becomes kind of it shrinks. Our voice shrinks at some point, and it's not intentional, right? But sometimes the world's voice gets a little loud. Society, programming, our parents, family, caregivers, siblings, sometimes their perspectives and their ways of seeing things and the desires they have for our lives become the loudest voice. And it's nobody's fault. Everybody wants, I'm sure we're going to assume good intent, that everybody wants the best for us, the people that are close to us, although not everyone does. But how do we come back to ourselves? How do we make our voice the loudest voice again? We were all born worthy. But yeah, sometimes along the way, we lose sight of that. And so that's what inspired this podcast, is how do we come back to center? How do we turn the volume up on our intuition, our inner voice, make that the loudest voice, and be maybe a little unapologetic about how we show up for ourselves. So I'm going to take a minute now to talk a little bit about who am I today. I am a licensed clinical psychologist. My specialty is working with high achiever couples. So I work with relationships. And over the years, I've really built my expertise around helping relationships heal, helping them grow, and sometimes helping couples separate because that's the healthiest route for them. So I also consider that to be a success. I've worked in so many different places, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. I'm also a person who lives her life in color. You might see it throughout the episodes in the colors that I wear, but it also might be in the way that I speak. So I am your quintessential millennial. So I have like certain sayings that I'll bring into the podcast, and I'm quirky and I like that. So sometimes you're going to hear that come out, but I really do love living my life in color. There are sides to me that are more deep. I'm very much an astrology lover. I love astrology. And for all those astrology lovers out there, I'm a Libra rising, I'm a Cancer moon sign, and I am a Capricorn sun. So you'll see probably throughout these episodes, I am very earthy in nature in the way that I bring concepts forward, but I'm also a little airy in terms of like, I like to chat. I'm a chatty Kathy. So I'm going to be chatting with you just like I would chat with a friend. I'm into social justice. That's a really important theme in my own personal life. So I may bring some of those concepts in when we're trying to understand where some of these voices come from when it comes to the judgments that we have on ourselves. And I also am a Cancer moon. So I really value validating our own emotions, especially because most of us growing up did not have that experience. A lot of us didn't have a space where we could share emotions and someone was going to be there to validate, like, it's okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be frustrated. What's that feeling you have? Let's sit with that for a minute. Now, of course, as society is evolving, we're seeing more of that. And also there's just more access to the internet and different ways that we parent and relate to each other and parent ourselves. So there's more information now, but back, I'm 40. So back in my day, that's so funny that I said that, but yeah, back in my day, parents weren't doing that. And especially in my perspective, my parents did a great job raising me. And I had one parent who was an immigrant. And so the message there is to succeed. I came here and I wanted to succeed, and I also wanted you to succeed. So that was front of mind in terms of achievement. And that's where my value came from. And I was encouraged in that area to grow and achieve and do well. And on the opposite side, I had another parent who was an artist. And so free flowing and fun and taught us different ways to view the world outside of the lines. I remember one time I wanted feedback. I was painting. I did an oil painting. I think I was maybe a teenager, and it was a self-portrait. And I really wanted my parent, who's an artist, to help me with the portrait because they're so good at what they do. And I said, "Can you help me with this? I just don't think it's accurate. I don't think it's good enough." And they said, "The whole point is to show how you view yourself through your art. And so I'm not going to help you." And at first I was a little frustrated. I was like, "Why can't you just help me? I know you're good at this and you can help me with the strokes and the methods." But I see now that it is important for us to see and value how we view ourselves. Our own voice is the one that should be valued the most. And so we're going to come back to that point again over and over throughout the podcast. So as I share a little bit more about my professional journey, and this is probably going to be the only episode where I talk about it, but I think it's important for you to know who is speaking to you. It is a part of my identity, not my full identity, but definitely part of it. I want you to track the sensations in your body as I'm sharing about my professional journey, and I'll tell you why after. So again, as I shared, I'm a couples psychologist and I've been trained in evidence-based treatment. So I feel very confident about the work that I do. It's not couples coming to me and venting every session and, trying to figure out what's wrong, but not really getting the message. They're getting tools every single week on why they're getting stuck and how to handle it differently, how to come back to connection faster and learning skills to do that. And so I've worked with CEOs. Again, I'm working with mostly high achiever couples. So CEOs, athletes, and entrepreneurs, And I really find the work to be so meaningful. And I definitely bring my personality to those sessions. And I've been trained by the best. I've been trained at UCLA, Penn, USC. The list goes on and on. I've done research, I've written a paper, and been first author. And so I have passion for the work that I do. And I also feel always very motivated to be the best at what I do, get the best training so that I can truly help every couple thrive. And like I said, that's whether they stay together or they decide to end their relationship in a healthy way. Again, it's the motivation, being good at what you do, being the best at what you do. Underneath all of that, there's true passion and values centered work. I do this work because I know that I'm helping to break cycles for generations. If I can help a couple relate in a healthy way, I know that if they have children, their children are then going to benefit from the work that we do. And their children's children are also going to benefit down the line. And sometimes I get emotional thinking about it because that's sort of like in the clouds, right? I'm not sharing that mission every time I see a couple, but I know once they finish, that's the outcome that really matters, that they can thrive in their own life because they're not stressed out about the relationship they have at home. They can focus on other things now. And also their children, anyone who's around them, their colleagues, their coworkers, because I'm helping people connect and communicate, those skills translate to all areas of our life. And it gives a sense of ease that I think is really important for us to have. Again, so we can focus on the other things that matter and the other passions that we have in life. So I want you to just reflect on what came up for you as I talked about my history, my past, what I feel proud about, what I feel confident about, my self-worth, my journey. Now, if you thought to yourself, hey girl, get it, like do your thing, sounds amazing, great. But if you thought, who does she think she is? She said she's the best at what she does. She thinks that she's a great couple psychologist. She's probably not that great. Take a breath and first just give yourself a lot of compassion for those thoughts that were coming up for you. And then maybe after you give yourself compassion, you ask yourself the question, where did I get that message that it's not okay to be proud about something? It's not okay to share in that kind of a way. I bet you there's some kind of script. Either it was from a parent, a caregiver, a neighbor, someone that said, nah, if you do that, you're narcissistic, or you're pretentious if you do that kind of thing. You're arrogant if you talk about yourself in that way. And maybe you want to unpack that. Maybe that's something that you percolate on, you journal on, or you take into your therapy session and think about a little bit deeper. We are hopefully going to embrace thought-provoking conversations. I'm not always going to have the answer to everything because I'm human, just like everyone else. I have the science, I have the background, I have the research, all the things, but I'm a human just like you in process with my self-love journey. Some days I feel really good about how much I love myself, and I can have compassion for myself when I'm having a hard moment, which is also self-love, facing the grief of my life. And then there's other times that I hit a wall and I'm not there. I'm not able to meet myself. And it's not about being perfect at this. Again, it's a process. And that's why we're going to talk about this every week. I have so many topics that I want to cover with you guys. So I'm not going to run out of ideas because the journey is an up and down. It's a roller coaster. And so it's just about being with the emotions in that journey and on the way through. In terms of my personal experiences with self-love and some of the challenges that I faced, I think one of the hardest challenges for me is my relationship to perfectionism, to being a high achiever myself and wanting everything to be just right. And also wanting the approval of others. I learned at a very early age that if I did everything right and I showed up in a particular way, if I absorbed all of the emotion, whether it's in the home or at school, and I digested it, I stayed outwardly calm, but inside there might have been turmoil, but I didn't know how to face those emotions early on. Everything was going to be okay, as long as I was viewed as the good girl, the good one that does it all right. And even though I had a spicy way about me, as I described earlier, the spicy side of me, it wasn't the front runner throughout my life journey. The front runner was the perfectionism, the high achiever, that side of me. And it really came to a head. I think it was around the time where I was living in Philadelphia. I had, I think, just finished my licensure, my training, postdoc, all the stuff. Like they put you through it, which is good because we obviously know at the end what we're doing when we step out into the world and do this job. But at that point, I had like really worked my booty off to get where I was, and I had my first position, and something I feel really proud about, and something I am, looking back on and impressed almost by, what happened next, which was like my first position was a leadership position at a hospital setting. And again, because I was conditioned throughout my childhood, wasn't in every way, but especially professionally and like being honored for what I knew and the information and being smart and being intelligent. When I decided to apply for this role, I didn't think there was any way I wouldn't get it. I just like there were senior psychologists up for this position. I was just like, this job is mine. I have this job. And again, it's because in my brain was oriented to achievement. And I knew if I put my mind to something, I could get it. And what happened? I did get the job. It came with a lot of pressure, and pressure that I felt like I was ready for. What I don't think I was ready for was how much people depended on me. And also, if I wasn't able to show up and do my job plus the job of other people, how that came back to bite me. Even though now I think about it, I'm like, oh, I could have just set a boundary and said, that's not my job. I don't have to do that thing. I'm going to focus on these things that I'm being paid to do. But because I was new in my career, I didn't have a sharpened skill when it came to boundaries. And so what did I do? I burned out. And how did it look? And for me, it was my personal arc of my eczema journey. So I've had severe eczema since I was a little girl. It got intense at times. I had to wear gloves. My parents would put gloves on me when I slept so I wouldn't like itch and bleed, which happened many times. And at certain points in my life, the eczema would flare and sometimes it wouldn't. But in that job in Philly, my eczema was the worst that it could ever be. And I'm talking like eczema, dry patches, itchiness all over my body, like wounds all over. And that was when my dermatologist said, okay, I think it's time for us to consider injectable medication. And I think that was the moment where I said, okay, something has to change here. Not that I was opposed to medication. I take medication and, I think it's important if it resonates with you to take medication when it's important to. However, I didn't want to take another medication. And so I said, something has to change. And I think this environment is making me sick. And at that moment, I had to really be honest with myself that I wasn't in professionally at least, the space to say no to things that were not my obligation and not my responsibility. I didn't have it yet. I wanted to be the nice girl. I wanted to be the one that everybody thought was cool and smart and would go. I know even like one of the most senior psychiatrists in the hospital would come to me. She had patients that she was struggling with, and something about me felt like, oh, I'm needed here. So even if I have a full plate, I'm going to still help this person. So I left right in the middle of the pandemic. It was 2020. There were, I don't even know, like 10 people on my flight. And I moved to San Diego. And I thought, okay, I'm going to get a job in San Diego. I did. I got a job before I left, actually. So in case you were wondering. But yeah, I started a new life in the middle of the pandemic. And it's through that experience that helped me really strengthen the muscle of my self-love journey, what that looks like, what I'm responsible for and what I'm not responsible for, what I show up for and what I don't show up for. It helped me to get really in a place of discernment. And I see that now, but I think I needed to experience that to come to this point where I could sharpen my skill in that area. And I wonder for you, as you're listening, what is that personal arc in your life where you thought, wow, that was a difficult and stressful moment, but it helped me see. Because that's what it did for me. It helped me see clearer about what I wanted for my life and how I wanted to live it with intention, with every single moment, the way that I speak to every single person. And so that's what we're going to always come to. And these are questions that you're going to ask yourself. And these are just examples for me to share. There's many arcs in my life journey. This is just one of them. The last thing I'll share on this topic is just my sensitivity when it comes to my skin. It's definitely an insecurity that I have because I've had severe eczema for most of my life. It created a challenging relationship between myself and my skin. And so I really had to, and I'm still working on healing that relationship. So yeah, I'm also a mother of a toddler. So that may come up many times. It's one of my brightest joys. And when I was pregnant, and I'm sure if any of you are listening and you've been pregnant, you know, you get like really terrible melasma. Your skin acts up, whether you get like acne or more eczema. It's just like the hormones are like fluctuating up and down, and your skin is getting the brunt of that. And I just remember feeling so insecure about my melasma on my face. And yeah, it's even something that I feel insecure about right now. And what I think is so interesting about that is that like anytime that I've shared about my skin insecurities to a friend or a colleague or whatever, they're like almost squinting at me because they're trying to find where is it? And it's funny to me because it's like centered in my mind. And I want you to think about for yourself what that is, like something that you feel insecure about, but someone might look at you and be like, what? Like they're looking closely, they're squinting at you, trying to figure out what you're talking about. It's so interesting, right? That like something that is so big in our lives to other people, they don't see it at all. So that's also something I've been percolating on a lot. And I wonder what that looks like for you too. So we're going to talk a little bit about what this podcast is and what it isn't. Love Yourself Loudly is not the feedback of look in the mirror and say positive things about yourself. That's not what self-love is. But somewhere along the journey, we all got the message that like, just look in the mirror and say 5 things about yourself. And then we get the ick. And then we get the like cringe, because if you don't believe it, why are you going to make yourself do that? And so that's not what this podcast is. It's not like the fluff, which look, if it helps you, fine. But this is not what this podcast is. This podcast is about meeting yourself exactly where you are and the decision to love yourself regardless of where you are on your journey, facing the grief, facing the emotions that come up in your life, because we're human and we're built to have emotions. That's what makes us human. How do we embrace that and love ourselves through the process of life, which comes with many challenges and also many celebratory moments? That's what this podcast is about. Some days, like I said earlier, I love myself loudly. I'm in celebration. I'm dancing. I'm singing. I'm having a good time, whether I'm on the elevator, I'm with a friend, or I'm with you guys on the podcast. And sometimes I'm not that way. I'm feeling challenged by that relationship with myself, either who I am internally, that relationship with my skin. Maybe I'm feeling sad that day. So I think there's an acceptance that comes with that it's not always going to be perfectly loving yourself in every way, because I'm trying to navigate away from the perfectionism of things always being a certain way and letting go of control, because we don't have control over a lot of things. So how do we accept that? So thank you for being on this ride. I'm so grateful that you're here with me. Cheers to episode 1, and we'll see you in the next episode. What if the most powerful thing you could do today is not wait until you're ready, better, or further along, but to love yourself loudly and unapologetically today? Okay, so real quick, this is for entertainment purposes only. This is not therapy or medical advice. If you're having a hard time, please reach out to a licensed professional. If this episode hit home, please share it with someone who might enjoy it as well. You already know who it is. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And if you're listening to the podcast form, please rate and review. It helps this podcast reach the people who really, truly need it. Now, the most important thing is come find me on social and say hi. You can find me at Dr. Nina Polyné or Love Yourself Loudly podcast. Until next time, love yourself loudly. I'm Dr. Nina, and I'm not sorry about it.